a lot of this is just getting some guys ready who are playing on Saturday.
Shedeur has to overwin. Shedeur has to not only win these battles, she has to do it in a way where he's above reproach. I think he did it in 3 ways. I think he acclimated himself well with his teammate.
News there as well. Shedeur Sanders returned to practice today from his oblique strain suffered last week, and it looks to me like he's got a pretty decent shot of playing some against the Rams on Saturday in that dress rehearsal game. I think they really want to see him one more time. He had that really nice debut against the Panthers, and I think they want to get him out there and get him a little bit more live action before he potentially has to play at some point this season.
I'll tell you this. Now, he took too many sacks, and I'll put that on him. I'll put that on him in the system, and he's got to be better. But he's deadly accurate. He's got great touch. And when you watch him in that first preseason game, the thing that I loved, and I mean loved, is his ability to slide and his movement skills in the pocket and still being able to create space, not eyeballing the rush, but feeling the rush.
Last year?
Yeah, Watson.
Yeah. What year is this?
Wrong move. I think you should have looked at one of these rookies to see if you had your franchise quarterback in the building, whether it's Shedeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel, who I felt both had good debuts here in the preseason. You know what Joe Flacco is. Don't make the comfortable, familiar decision. Figure out if one man that you drafted in the 3rd or the 5th round could be the guy.
What if I told you that the NFL establishment is actively working to suppress the most revolutionary quarterback talent we've seen in decades? While everyone's focused on Shedeur Sanders' midnight training sessions and ambidextrous throws, I've uncovered a coordinated effort by league insiders to downplay his abilities and control the narrative around his development. The evidence is hiding in plain sight, from Mary Kay Cabot's suspicious opinion reversal to Kevin Stefanski's cryptic non-answers about the depth chart. This isn't just about one player's journey. This is about an entire system terrified of being exposed as obsolete. The NFL has built a multi-billion-dollar empire on a simple premise, that developing quarterbacks requires years of traditional mentorship, gradual progression, and institutional control. But Shedeur Sanders represents something that threatens this entire foundation, proof that elite quarterbacks can emerge fully formed, that innovation trumps tradition, and that the current development system is nothing more than an expensive charade designed to maintain power structures rather than maximize talent. What I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you view every NFL draft evaluation, every coaching decision, and every media narrative around quarterback development. The league's response to Sanders isn't about his readiness. It's about protecting a system that generates billions in revenue through artificial scarcity and manufactured timelines. By the end of this video, you'll see how the NFL's systematic suppression of Sanders is actually their desperate attempt to prevent a revolution that would expose decades of institutional incompetence. Let's start with the most obvious evidence of systematic suppression, the coordinated media campaign to control Sanders' narrative. Mary Kay Cabot's dramatic reversal from critic to advocate wasn't organic opinion evolution. It was the result of institutional pressure to manage a story that was getting out of control. Think about the timeline. Cabot spent months questioning Sanders' readiness, his ability to handle NFL complexity, his transition from college to professional football. These weren't casual observations. They were calculated talking points designed to reinforce the traditional narrative that college quarterbacks need extensive development time. Then, suddenly, after just 2 weeks of OTAs and minicamp, she completely reversed course and declared him officially ready. This isn't how legitimate football evaluation works. Scouts and analysts don't make 180-degree opinion changes based on limited practice footage. What changed wasn't Sanders' ability. What changed was the institutional recognition that their suppression strategy was backfiring. Sanders' midnight training sessions and Florida thunderstorms were generating too much positive attention, his ambidextrous throwing abilities were creating too much buzz, and the narrative was slipping out of their control. The NFL's media manipulation machine operates through a network of trusted analysts who receive access in exchange for narrative compliance. When Cabot initially criticized Sanders, she was following the script, emphasized his need for development, questioned his readiness, reinforced the traditional timeline. But when Sanders' viral training footage started generating millions of views and converting fans independently of media opinion, the script had to change. Notice how Cabot's reversal came with specific talking points that still serve the system's interests. She praised his studying and learning curve progression, language that reinforces the idea that traditional development methods were responsible for his improvement. This allows the system to take credit for Sanders' success while maintaining the narrative that their development process is essential. The coordination extends beyond individual critics. Herm Edwards' prediction that Sanders would win the starting job outright from day one serves a different function in the suppression strategy. By setting unrealistic expectations, the system creates a scenario where anything less than immediate superstar performance can be framed as failure, justifying their original skepticism. This is psychological warfare disguised as sports analysis. The NFL understands that controlling the narrative around revolutionary talent is crucial to maintaining their institutional power. If Sanders succeeds immediately without following traditional development protocols, it exposes the entire quarterback development industry as unnecessary gatekeeping designed to maintain control rather than maximize performance. The most damning evidence is the timing of these opinion reversals. They didn't coincide with Sanders' best performances, they coincided with moments when the independent narrative was becoming too powerful to ignore. The system wasn't responding to his football development, they were responding to their loss of narrative control. Kevin Stefanski's handling of the Sanders situation reveals the most sophisticated aspect of the NFL suppression strategy, using institutional authority to create artificial scarcity and maintain control over revolutionary talent. His repeated non-committal responses about the quarterback depth chart aren't coaching caution, they're calculated psychological manipulation designed to suppress Sanders' development and maintain traditional power structures. When asked about Sanders' role behind Joe Flacco, Stefanski's response was deliberately vague. "We'll make that call in a couple of days." This isn't normal coaching communication. Successful coaches are decisive about talent evaluation and clear about player roles. Stefanski's evasiveness serves a different purpose. It creates uncertainty that prevents Sanders from gaining the confidence and momentum that could expose the traditional development system as obsolete. The choice to start Joe Flacco over Sanders reveals the system's priorities. Flacco represents everything the NFL establishment values: experience within traditional systems, acceptance of institutional hierarchy, and dependence on coaching infrastructure for success. Sanders represents the opposite: natural ability that transcends traditional development, independence from institutional control, and proof that elite performance doesn't require years of systematic indoctrination. Ryan Clark's criticism of this decision exposes the real stakes. "I think you should have looked at one of these rookies to see if you had your franchise quarterback in the building. Whether it's Shedeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel. Don't make the comfortable familiar decision. Figure out if one of these young men could be the guy." Clark understands what the system fears most, that Sanders could succeed immediately, proving that traditional development timelines are artificial constructs designed to maintain control rather than optimize performance. Stefanski's patient approach with Sanders isn't about player development, it's about system preservation. By forcing Sanders to follow traditional progression protocols, the organization maintains the illusion that their development infrastructure is necessary for success. If Sanders were allowed to compete immediately and succeeded, it would expose decades of institutional gatekeeping as unnecessary barriers to talent expression. The most revealing aspect is how Stefanski frames his approach. "We're giving players the opportunities they need without rushing anyone back from injury. We can't force anyone into action too soon." This language creates a false narrative that Sanders needs protection and gradual development, when the evidence suggests he's already more capable than the veteran ahead of him on the depth chart. This institutional gatekeeping serves multiple functions. It maintains the illusion that coaching expertise is essential for quarterback success. It preserves the traditional power hierarchy that keeps revolutionary talent subordinate to institutional authority, and it creates artificial timelines that generate revenue through extended development narratives rather than immediate performance optimization. The system's fear is evident in how carefully they're managing Sanders' exposure. Limited preseason snaps, controlled practice environments, and strategic media management all serve to prevent Sanders from demonstrating capabilities that would expose traditional development methods as unnecessary obstacles to elite performance. Sanders' ambidextrous throwing ability represents the NFL establishment's worst nightmare, innovation that renders decades of defensive preparation and coaching expertise obsolete overnight. The league's systematic downplaying of this revolutionary skill isn't about questioning its effectiveness, it's about protecting an entire infrastructure built around predictable quarterback mechanics and traditional throwing patterns. Former NFL defensive coordinator Mike Zimmer's admission that preparing for an ambidextrous quarterback is like trying to defend against two different players simultaneously reveals exactly why the system is terrified. Defensive coordinators have built careers on pattern recognition, tendency analysis, and mechanical predictability. Sanders' ability to deliver NFL-caliber throws from either side of his body doesn't just create tactical challenges, it threatens to expose the entire defensive coaching profession as unprepared for true innovation. The footage of Sanders switching hands mid-play and delivering perfect spirals to receivers who are only accessible from specific arm angles represents a fundamental shift in quarterback capabilities. Traditional defensive schemes are built around the assumption that quarterbacks have mechanical limitations that create predictable throwing lanes and timing windows. Sanders eliminates these limitations, making decades of defensive theory obsolete. But the system's response reveals their true priorities. Instead of celebrating this innovation, they're systematically minimizing its importance. Analysts focus on Sanders' need for development in traditional areas while glossing over abilities that no quarterback in NFL history has possessed. This isn't objective evaluation, it's strategic suppression of information that threatens established power structures. The NFL's defensive coaching infrastructure represents millions of dollars in salaries, consulting fees, and institutional expertise. If Sanders proves that ambidextrous throwing can neutralize traditional defensive schemes, it exposes this entire infrastructure as unprepared for evolutionary talent. Coaches who have built reputations on defensive innovation suddenly face the prospect of being rendered obsolete by a single player's unique abilities. The most telling aspect is how the league handles Sanders' training footage. When he demonstrates ambidextrous precision in controlled environments, the response is always to question how it will translate to real game situations. This creates a false standard where revolutionary abilities must prove themselves against systems designed to suppress innovation, rather than acknowledging that the systems themselves may be inadequate. Sanders' midnight training sessions in Florida thunderstorms, where he demonstrates ambidextrous accuracy in conditions that would challenge any quarterback, represent preparation that transcends traditional development methods. He's not just training his arm, he's training his mind to operate outside the mechanical limitations that the entire NFL defensive infrastructure depends on for predictability. The system's fear is evident in how they frame Sanders' abilities. Instead of acknowledging that ambidextrous throwing creates unprecedented tactical advantages, they focus on traditional metrics like pocket presence and decision-making speed. This deflection serves to maintain the illusion that conventional evaluation methods are sufficient for assessing revolutionary talent. The reality is that Sanders' ambidextrous abilities represent the first genuine innovation in quarterback mechanics in decades, and the NFL establishment's response reveals their commitment to preserving traditional systems over embracing evolutionary advancement. The NFL's insistence on traditional development timelines for Sanders reveals the most insidious aspect of their suppression strategy, the creation of artificial scarcity to maintain institutional control over elite talent. The league has convinced everyone that quarterback development requires years of gradual progression, but Sanders' immediate readiness exposes this timeline as a manufactured construct designed to preserve power structures rather than optimize performance. Mark Schlereth's analysis of Sanders reveals the system's double standard. While praising Sanders as deadly accurate with great touch and exceptional movement skills in the pocket, Schlereth still emphasizes areas where Sanders needs to be better. This creates a false narrative that even exceptional talent requires extensive institutional development, when the evidence suggests Sanders is already more capable than many established NFL quarterbacks. The traditional development timeline serves multiple institutional interests. It justifies massive coaching salaries by creating the illusion that quarterback success depends on expert guidance rather than natural ability. It generates revenue through extended storylines about player progression rather than immediate performance. Most importantly, it maintains the power dynamic where revolutionary talent remains subordinate to institutional authority. Sanders' midnight training sessions in impossible conditions, thunderstorms, humidity, darkness, demonstrate preparation that transcends anything traditional development programs offer. He's conditioning himself to perform under pressure that most NFL quarterbacks never experience, yet the system continues to insist he needs more development time within their controlled environments. The Browns' handling of Sanders' injury recovery reveals how artificial timelines are used as control mechanisms. Stefanski's emphasis on not rushing anyone back and ensuring players get the right support and development creates unnecessary delays that serve institutional interests rather than performance optimization. Sanders demonstrated full recovery and exceptional ability immediately upon return, yet the organization maintains artificial barriers to his advancement. Ryan Clark's frustration with this approach exposes the real stakes. You know what Joe Flacco is. Don't make the comfortable familiar decision. Figure out if one of these young men could be the guy. Clark understands that the system's preference for experience over innovation is actually a preference for predictability over excellence. The development timeline deception operates through manufactured benchmarks that have no correlation with actual performance capability. Sanders must demonstrate learning curve progression and studying results, even though his on-field performance already exceeds these artificial standards. This creates a system where revolutionary talent is held to standards designed for conventional players, ensuring that innovation is always subordinate to tradition. The most damaging aspect is how this artificial timeline prevents fans and media from recognizing Sanders' immediate readiness. By creating the expectation that quarterbacks need years of development, the system ensures that Sanders' current capabilities are viewed as potential rather than present reality. This narrative manipulation serves to maintain institutional control over talent that could succeed immediately without traditional development infrastructure. The evidence is overwhelming. Sanders possesses abilities that transcend traditional development requirements, yet the system continues to impose artificial timelines that serve institutional interests rather than performance optimization. The NFL's systematic suppression of Sanders isn't just about one player, it's about preventing a revolution that would expose the entire quarterback development industry as an expensive charade designed to maintain institutional control rather than maximize talent. Sanders represents proof that elite quarterbacks can emerge fully formed, that innovation trumps tradition, and that the current system is fundamentally obsolete. Garrett Bush's observation that Sanders is playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers inadvertently reveals what the establishment fears most: a player who understands that success in the modern NFL requires transcending traditional limitations rather than conforming to institutional expectations. Sanders isn't just developing football skills, he's developing a complete approach that makes traditional development methods look primitive by comparison. The revolution Sanders represents extends beyond individual performance to systemic transformation. His midnight training sessions demonstrate that elite preparation doesn't require institutional facilities or expert supervision. His ambidextrous abilities prove that mechanical innovation can render traditional defensive schemes obsolete. His community engagement shows that authentic connection transcends manufactured PR campaigns. Most dangerously for the establishment, his immediate readiness suggests that traditional development timelines are artificial barriers rather than necessary progressions. The financial implications are staggering. The NFL's quarterback development infrastructure represents billions in coaching salaries, facility investments, and consulting fees. If Sanders proves that elite quarterbacks can succeed immediately without this infrastructure, it exposes decades of institutional spending as unnecessary overhead that serves power preservation rather than performance optimization. The system's response reveals their awareness of these stakes. Instead of celebrating Sanders' revolutionary abilities, they're systematically minimizing his readiness, emphasizing his need for traditional development, and maintaining artificial barriers to his advancement. This isn't objective evaluation, it's institutional self-preservation disguised as player development. Sanders' statement that "I will not be deterred" takes on new meaning in this context. He's not just expressing personal determination, he's declaring independence from a system designed to suppress revolutionary talent in favor of institutional control. His midnight training sessions aren't just skill development, they're demonstrations that elite preparation transcends traditional limitations. The most threatening aspect of Sanders' revolution is its replicability. If he succeeds immediately without following traditional development protocols, it creates a blueprint for future quarterbacks to bypass institutional gatekeeping entirely. This would fundamentally alter the power dynamic between individual talent and organizational control, shifting leverage toward players who can demonstrate immediate value rather than long-term potential. The establishment's fear is evident in their coordinated response: media manipulation to control narrative, institutional gatekeeping to limit opportunities, artificial timeline enforcement to maintain control, and systematic minimization of revolutionary abilities. This isn't normal player evaluation, it's institutional warfare against evolutionary advancement. The revolution Sanders represents isn't just about football, it's about proving that individual excellence can transcend institutional limitations, that innovation can render traditional methods obsolete, and that authentic talent doesn't require artificial development timelines to achieve elite performance. The NFL's systematic suppression reveals their understanding that Sanders doesn't just threaten their current power structure, he threatens to expose it as fundamentally unnecessary. The evidence is undeniable. The NFL establishment is systematically suppressing Shedeur Sanders because he represents a revolution that would expose their entire development infrastructure as obsolete. From Mary Kay Cabot's coordinated opinion reversal to Kevin Stefanski's strategic gatekeeping, from the minimization of his ambidextrous abilities to the enforcement of artificial development timelines, every aspect of Sanders' treatment reveals an institution terrified of evolutionary change. This isn't about one player's journey to the NFL, this is about a system desperately trying to maintain control over revolutionary talent that threatens to expose decades of institutional incompetence. Sanders' midnight training sessions, ambidextrous throwing abilities, and immediate readiness prove that elite quarterbacks don't need traditional development infrastructure to succeed. They just need the opportunity to demonstrate capabilities that transcend conventional limitations. The NFL's systematic suppression of Sanders is actually their admission that he's already more advanced than their traditional development methods can produce. They're not protecting him from failure, they're protecting themselves from being exposed as unnecessary obstacles to elite performance. The revolution is coming whether they suppress it or not. The question is whether they'll adapt to evolutionary advancement or continue fighting a battle they've already lost. Sanders isn't just changing how we think about quarterback development, he's proving that individual excellence can transcend institutional control when talent meets opportunity. What do you think? Are you seeing the same patterns of systematic suppression, or am I connecting dots that don't exist? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let me know if you've noticed other examples of the NFL establishment suppressing revolutionary talent. If you want more analysis that exposes the systems behind the stories, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one.